Hi, everyone. I figured today, since we've been on a bit of a line of heavy topics over the last bit, that I'd jump over for just at this time to something a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more interesting in terms of what people experience in their day-to-day lives. And that is the subject of dreams. Often I have people show up in my office with certain types of dreams or things they've dreamed, and dreaming seems to be one of those things that just as human beings, we find the most mysterious. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of the theories that I find most interesting as to why people dream, and what dreams actually are and what they actually show. And so the first one that I'm sure most people have heard of or possibly heard something about is Freud's idea of dreams, which is psychoanalytic stuff. Most people have some pretty strong opinions on Freud, even most psychologists I know. But his theory on dreams was that they were manifestations of our subconscious. So basically, while we're awake, we have mechanisms that keep certain thoughts or ideas or even memories repressed. And so we use those to avoid things, to not encounter them or have to deal with them. But then when we fall asleep, those mechanisms are no longer active. So things start to surface in our dreams that are representative of what we have buried in our subconscious. So Freud really felt that the content of dreams was something that one really needed to dig into and to explore and to examine, so that you could learn more about yourself and who you are and what you needed to work on or what you needed to confront. And this is carried a little bit farther with Jung, who believed that, we all had this kind of shared unconscious, which meant there was, shared symbolism across humanity in general, and that we could start making more solid interpretations based on the idea that symbols from that shared unconscious are going to mean the same thing to the same people. So, for example, a snake might represent at least something dangerous to probably most people in the world. So he carried that kind of opinion. And that's very similar to the opinion that certain religions actually still carry today, is that everything that occurs in a person's dream is representative of the world around us. So I think that's still something that's actually quite held to. You'll find books on how to interpret your dream and what different symbols mean, that sort of thing. Another theory, and one that I actually subscribe to myself a little more after having listened to a lot of dreams that people have had, is that our brains take in a lot of information throughout the day. And there's a few theories that kind of focus on what our brain does with that information. So one of those theories is that the brain takes it in and is working to move it to long-term memory, and dreaming is part of that process. The reason that dreams can be so crazy, the theory postulates, is that there's part of our brain that when it's awake, it orders our thoughts, and it automatically decides which thoughts we're going to keep, what we're going to attend to, what we need to discard, what we're not going to be focusing on. And it really assembles all the information from our senses into a very understandable representation of the world. Now, when you're asleep, that part of your brain is asleep. So you have all of this information you've collected throughout the day in your mind, and your brain has nothing to tell it, okay, this is how we organize it so that it looks like reality. And so our brain will just sort of hodgepodge it together into something that maybe makes sense, which is why often in dreams that aren't related to traumatic events, things can be seem very, very strange, like I was in a bright orange room and like, I could hear my grandfather's voice booming from above. And so, your memory is kind of working through those events and storing them, and your brain's just making kind of like this colorful hodgepodge picture for you to look at with nothing to edit it. So those are the two primary theories. Now, of course, if you have something traumatic happen and that shows up in your dreams, that's a very different process than just the dreaming that we all engage in at some point in our day-to-day life. And the reality is that we know from research that everybody dreams. It's just some people don't remember them. So if you run into people who are like, nope, never had a dream in my life, never, don't have anything to think about, I just sleep and there's nothing there. Well, that's not actually the case. You are dreaming. It's just your waking mind isn't carrying that information forward for you to remember in the morning. So I personally find dreams a very fascinating experience that all humanity shares. And so I hope that gives you a bit of a window into why it may happen and some of the theories behind it. But of course, there's many, many more. And I mean, depending on your belief system, depending on the science you look at, you're going to maybe have a wider understanding of what dreams may be, which is perfectly fine, because the reality is we have a lot of theories, but we don't have an answer. So within those theories, variation is amazing. It shows human creativity. So I'd be interested, if you all took a moment and just thought about, why do you think you dream? What do you think it actually does for you? And see what comes to mind. But that's it for today. So thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next time.